Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Patrick Moore. He is the co-founder of Greenpeace, and he has written the books Confessions of a Greenpeace Dropout, The Making of a Sensible Environmentalist, and Trees Are the Answer. He is the co-founder of Green Spirit Strategies Ltd. out of Canada. And he is here to talk with me and us about Confessions of a Greenpeace Dropout. You should read this book because it may be that, like me, you're going to learn that a lot of the terms that are being used, a lot of the ideologies that are being adapted are going to be clarified and distilled. I consider myself an environmental advocate. I had a lot of humbling and learning to do in this book. Not that I agreed with every single thing that was said, but for the most part, it was a great learning experience. And I'm honored today to have the privilege to talk with Patrick. And I appreciate the work that he's done for over 30 years to help the environment, to assist whales and seals and so many animals that are abused and life itself here. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Patrick Moore. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Kim. It's great to be with you.
I think the first thing that I noticed that was a theme throughout Confessions of a Greenpeace Dropout is that you have been an activist on the ground, dealing with the whaling ships, dealing with the seals that have been clubbed. You have experience in forestry, and so does your family, and that you don't come out of nowhere when you say what you say. You have a clear, definitive standing in understanding the confusion that many of us have with regard to the environment, whether it's climate, chemicals, or foods, or other things. And I guess the first thing I'd like to ask you to do for us is to explain to us why renewable energy does not mean clean energy.
Well, yes, in my little chapter on sustainability and what the definitions are around words, I have a section called renewable, clean, sustainable, and green. And people use those words as if they're interchangeable, when in fact it's very important to parse them because they all have distinct meanings. And once you understand that, it gives you a better insight into being able to do some critical thinking and reading and understanding about energy issues in general. And for example, renewable is fairly clear what it means. It means that it replenishes itself in a fairly short cycle. The sun is there every day for us. It doesn't wear out. It doesn't go away except at night and when it's cloudy, which is why solar panels are not all they're cracked up to be. But renewable simply means that. But renewable doesn't necessarily mean sustainable or clean. And for example, if you burn wood without any pollution control, it's dirty. It produces a huge amount of smoke, and it's really bad to have everybody burning wood fires in a valley where you have an inversion and everybody's breathing in wood smoke. That's bad for you. It's unhealthy, just like coal smoke and fossil fuel smoke. It's more or less the same thing. And as far as sustainable goes, if you cut the forest faster than it grows, that's not sustainable. It's the same with the bison, the buffalo of the Great Plains. They're renewables. They're a species that's renewable, but they were overhunted and nearly exterminated. The codfish off the Atlantic coast, renewable, but not sustainable at the rate they were harvested. So it's really important to make that distinction. So if you burn wood, which is renewable, you have to have good pollution control in order to make it clean, and you have to make sure that the forest is growing back as fast or faster than you're using the wood for energy in order for it to be sustainable. On the other hand, there are quite a few non-renewable resources that are sustainable and clean. And nuclear energy is the classic case of that, which there's enough uranium and thorium in the Earth's crust to last for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. Long after the fossil fuels are gone, there will be nuclear fuel. And when a nuclear plant is operating properly, it is clean, emitting no air pollution or greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Steel is made from iron. Iron is theoretically non-renewable. It doesn't replenish itself, but there's so much of it in the Earth's crust that we couldn't use it all up if we tried. There's enough for millions of years. So iron is extremely sustainable. Now, as to whether it's clean or not has to do with the manufacturing process by which it's made, because you use coal, for example, to put the carbon into steel, and that process can be dirty if there's not proper pollution control. The real issue with iron and steel is the energy that's needed to convert iron ore into steel that we would make a ship with, or a stainless steel refrigerator. That energy also has to be sustainable. But the iron ore itself is not renewable, yet extremely sustainable. And then comes the word green, which is the least useful of all of those four terms: renewable, clean, sustainable, and green. Because green is basically just a marketing term as it is used today. It doesn't have any technical definition. For example, when people talk about green jobs, like, what are you actually talking about?
I think with the name green and the marketing term, my understanding just from hearing it, not from inside knowledge per se, is that when something is green, it's considered and assumed to be sustainable and, quote, good.
What about a green car, a green automobile? Toyota cloaks itself in green because of its hybrid technology, which is an improvement. So it seems as though as long as you're making some kind of improvement, even though what you're doing is still not particularly sustainable, because how sustainable is an automobile? And how sustainable is it that we have millions, hundreds of millions of them? They require a lot of mining. They require a lot of energy to produce. They use a lot of energy. So I accept the word green as being somewhat useful, but it's important that people understand it doesn't have any metric.
When you say it doesn't have metric, tell me what you mean.
You can't measure green.
Okay.
You can measure sustainable in centuries. You can measure clean in pollution, whether there is or is not pollution. And renewable is self-explanatory in that it replenishes itself without our involvement. But green is mostly a value judgment. So is pollution, in fact. A lot of people think pollution is a scientific term, when in fact it is a value judgment, meaning that something is somewhere where we don't want it to be. Because chlorine, for example, would be pollution if it was in the air that I'm breathing. But when it's in a swimming pool preventing me from getting a disease, it's not pollution. So pollution isn't about the substance so much as it is about the dose, the quantity of whatever it is, and more particularly where it is. Radioactivity in the sea off Japan is pollution, but radioactivity inside a nuclear reactor is not pollution. It's a value judgment.
I understand the distinctions that you're making. It's about the application, it's about dosage, it's about what it is and how it's used. Can we talk for a second here about clean coal?
The problem with clean coal is it is an advertising campaign and not much more, although the coal industry, especially if they can attract large federal government grants, is happy to see multi-million, even multi-billion-dollar projects to demonstrate clean coal, because that's a good cover for the fact that none of the coal plants are actually clean.
What do they mean when they say it? Aside from it being obviously a marketing approach, but how can they say it's clean coal? What do they mean?
When they say clean coal, what they mean is all the exhaust gases are going to be buried in the ground. And that's called carbon capture and sequestration, or carbon capture and storage, CCS, that is, carbon capture and storage. And the theory is that you take the exhaust gas from the coal plant and basically pump it into the ground, into caverns and layers underground. It's a great theory, except that there are over 600 coal plants in the United States, and they are not all in places where there are big holes in the ground where they can pump all their gas, besides which this will be extremely expensive.